Tenpenny Parks is a competitive game that relies on worker placement and tile laying, and those are some of my favorite mechanics, so you know that I was excited when I started playing this game. The components also look absolutely gorgeous, which does not hurt at all. All cardboard components are nice and thick. Definitely, and also, as you will see, very nice art. But again, just look at these components. Very pleasant to manipulate and move around. No problem whatsoever from the point of view of production. Now, the game will take place on and around a main board, which you see here. In one section, we're gonna have the parts of the board where you're gonna place your workers to trigger actions. And then we have another section of the board here where we keep track of the emotions that we trigger in our visitors, the visitors to our parks. We're gonna score thrill, awe, and joy. And so when you place things on your board that have certain icons, the corresponding icons, you will move these markers on those tracks accordingly, and there will be bonuses for being ahead of the other players. And here we have our own park. Each player starts with a tile representing their starting park with some trees on it. Now, if you love trees a lot, if you are a forest enthusiast, I don't know, this game may be a little heavy for you to play, emotionally speaking, because these trees gotta go to make room for our big attractions in our awesome theme parks. Each player has 3 workers, 3 personal workers per round. Oopsie, I just killed 2 of them. Nah, just knock them down. They're fine. They're fine. They're made of wood. They're made of tough stuff. 3 workers, plus there is a bonus that will give you an extra worker during a turn. So, or a round. Each round, and we got 5 of them, players will simply alternate placing workers in specific areas of the board and triggering actions. The first player is the player who owns the mighty shovel, the shovel of power. The player also gets to choose the orientation of the carousel in between turns. So, in this case, in terms of flow, pretty typical worker placement. So what are the actions that we can trigger? There are 4 actions printed on the board, and those accept any number of workers. And then we have actions printed on the carousel, and each slot accepts only 1 worker. And these are the ones that we use to build our attractions. Each attraction corresponds to a card, and they're divided into groups such as Far West or Fantasy or Prehistory, and these decks are shuffled at the beginning of the game so that the attractions will be available in a different order every time that you play the game. And when you build an attraction, you take the corresponding card and you also look for the corresponding tile. And say, for example, we got this one. We got this one here. Hey, since we're talking about that one, about this, why don't we just talk about that action? If you place your token, one of your workers, on an empty slot on the carousel, you can take the card on top of the corresponding deck and build the corresponding attraction, but you have to pay the cost printed on the card as modified by the slot that is currently facing the deck. In this case, it's a 0, no modifier, but it can be another 0. It can be a -1, -2, and on the other side, we got +1 and +2. So it can become less or more expensive. And again, you got a nice bag of really thick money tiles. Again, everything is just top-notch production-wise. When you build an attraction, again, you pay the cost, you occupy the slot, you take the corresponding card, and you take the corresponding tile. And you need to place it on your board, you probably guessed it, without covering any tree. Of course, you have to follow the grid. You cannot hang outside of the grid. That would just be weird. And so, for example, this would be a legal placement for me. I'm bumping the tree a little bit, not killing it. It's fine. As you place down your tiles, you will probably start covering some of those icons that will give you different benefits, such as they may give you money, or they may allow you to advance on those tracks that I showed you earlier. This one, for example, gives you a step in joy. This one, a step in awe. This one gives you 2 steps in any emotion or any two emotions that you want. So that's pretty much it for that part. After we take the card, we flip it to this side and we place it next to our park. So we're gonna have a record, an ongoing record of the various attractions that we build, and that may be important later. Their actions, again, as you can imagine, that's pretty much the main action. All the other actions are functional to be able to build as many of those as possible, and to also be able to build the right ones to trigger certain scoring combinations. So those are the actions printed on the board. The Realtor, if you go there, it costs you $3, but that's when you expand your park. You buy new land, I guess, and you can add one of these tiles here to the side of your park. And yes, once you place a new tile, then you also add new trees as indicated by the symbols printed on the tile. And you can go this way, you can go that way, you cannot go the other way. So it'll become longer and longer, or wider and wider, I should say. Banker, go there and collect $2. Not the greatest action in terms of opportunity cost. All the way there we have the arborist, who works for free. She really loves her job and allows you to remove 2 trees from your board to make room for more attractions. And then there we have the contractor. So that contractor, also an action for free, gives us concession stands. They are represented by those tiles that only take 1 square. There is only a number of them available each round. The number is twice the number of players, so this would be for 3 players. And again, they come from a stack, and we draw new ones at the beginning or of each round or in between rounds. And these concessions, again, they don't cost anything. They're very easy to place. They give you symbols, and or they may give you income. And so when you take the action of visit the contractor, you get a new concession to place on your board. Oh, something I should have also mentioned. Oh, see, I cleared some trees there, and that's it. That's not a tree that needed to be cleared. This one will be better. Because one thing I did not mention is that as you place things on your board, you don't want things to be too cluttered. People need to be able to walk around, and so things that you place on your board cannot touch orthogonally, side by side. That's okay. They touch by corner, just like so. So that would be a legal placement. This would be a legal placement, and so on and so forth. So as you can see, it can get crowded pretty quickly, and so that's why you need to talk to the realtor and get more land. So each turn there's also an income step in which you get money. You will get always at least $3 per turn. You will also get money in between turns if there are money icons printed on your board. So you collect all the money from that, from the concession stands. Some of the attractions also give you money. And then you keep playing until all workers have been assigned. Then you have a very important bonus steps in which we look at those tracks and we see who is ahead on each of those, because the person ahead gets a pretty nice bonus. Now, these bonuses, if you want to collect the bonus, you gotta go back on the track by 3 spaces. You can also alternatively, instead of getting the main bonus, just collect a victory point, which is also sweet. As for the main bonuses though, again, which will cost you 3 steps back. The main bonus here is you get the extra worker into your pool to use for next turn. Here you get the mighty shovel of power, which again lets you go first and lets you change your orientation of the carousel so it can face whatever it is that you really want to build for cheap next turn. This one gives you extra money. Not a bad thing. So we continue like this for 5 turns, for 5 rounds, each again being income step, action steps, checking the bonuses. There is another little step that early on is not super important, which is advertising, which is you can choose for all the attractions that you built, and now the card is looking like that next to your board. There is a ticket icon here, and you can spend that much money to collect that many victory points. Again, you can do that for each of your attractions in between or at the end of each round. Continue like this for 5 rounds. At the end of the 5 round, there is some final scoring. Players receive secret objectives at the beginning of the game. They're not very hard to satisfy, and usually every game I played, everybody completes them all. But you reveal them, and then you see if you were able to complete them, and then you score that many points. If you did, your attractions score victory points as indicated on them. The emotion tracks also will give you victory points at the end of the game. 5 victory points if you have a disc that is above the 8th space on that track. And finally, building a lot of attractions is just very good. 5 victory points if you build at least 6 of them, 6 or 7, and 10 victory points if you build 8 or more. At that point, everybody has their final score, and the player with the highest total wins the game. Tenpenny Parks is excellent, just an excellent, light, simple, family-oriented worker placement game with stunning art, some of the most pleasant art I've seen in a while. Great production values, again, everything being so sturdy and solid and just a pleasure to manipulate. And when it comes to gameplay, because of course the game is the thing, it's really fun. It's really fun. Again, for a light, family-oriented experience, and or for, say, the second game of game night when you played the big game and now you want to say you want something a little lighter. In that context, of course, you're going to work with your friends to set it up. There is a number of pieces that need to be sorted out, and you need to make sure you have your system organization so you can retrieve them during gameplay, but it's not too bad. But gameplay, again, it's worker placement with this interesting element of tiling. So you got 2 puzzles going on. I need to read my opponents, figure out what you're trying to do, because that gives me a sense. It's useless to build toward an attraction because I really know that that person is going to take it. Or at least that person is going to make it super expensive because they want to do this, and so I know they're going to turn this that way. But you have a range of actions which is big enough, is large enough. So it's worth not just planning your own things, but really trying to see what other people are trying to do. But at the same time, it's not so large, it's not so complicated that then it leads to analysis paralysis. And I play with some players who are known for taking their sweet time in my group, and no problem there. So it is a game that rewards the gameplay, that has nice, interesting elements there. Again, I love how the worker placement goes together with the polyomino element. Also, I like the fact that when you play polyomino games, it just looks good. Pieces are placed on the board in certain patterns that they just have a certain aesthetics. There's an element of balance there. And it's also nice to try to figure out different combos for scoring in different ways. You will want to have money early on, of course, otherwise you find yourself stuck. So you're building stuff that will give you money. But you gotta then find the right point to switch towards the things that will give you the most points, because, well, you don't want maybe some particularly precious kinds of things to be built, precious for you because of your scoring things, because of how it works. You don't want other people to build them. So there is a nice tension there between creating your engine of resources and using it before it is too late. One thing, maybe those objectives at the end, they're very easy to score, and so I just have seen everybody scoring all of them every game. Maybe I like if, and it's fine, I like if there was maybe 2 decks of objective cards, one exactly like the ones we have here, and one that's a little more difficult to score for a higher price, of course, or for the same price, for the same amount of points, but it gets tougher to get. The little competition on those tracks is also very important, because extra points, hello, that's pretty good, but extra resources, very important. Is in a worker placement game, everybody wants that extra worker, which of course creates the situation in which there's tension there, everybody wants to go there, and somebody's like, or I can collect these other bonuses pretty easily because no one is competing against me for those. So you got really 3 areas of agency here, 3 areas that you're working with, the tracks and the worker placement and your own little puzzle. And they just are integrated very well, very seamlessly. I take this action because it gives me this building and it gives me that advancement. And maybe I do this building, which is not super cool for me, but gives me that thing on the track. This is super important for me for scoring. It's okay if it doesn't have me on that track, and so on and so forth. So you have all of the things that make a game interesting to me, which is an interesting range of decision, a very smooth flow, very interesting interactions, and added bonus, it's a knockout from the point of view of production. So definitely I'm very happy, very pleased with Tenpenny Parks.